a Sunni axis. It's broader than that, and not the religion is not the common denominator for these countries, but there are two phenomena which are a source of concern to all the reasonable governments in this region. One, Iran as a growing military and nuclear power, and they have good reason to be afraid of it. And another thing, and it goes together, the precedent of a Muslim Brothers democratically elected government. No one wants that it will happen at his own home. So there is now, I would say, an alliance in creation of all those reasonable governments which think how to join hands and to forestall these two dangers. And this is, I agree with you, an opportunity for us. We have some obligation here. It will be very difficult for those countries to join hands, for sure with us, as long as there is no visible progress towards a solution of the Palestinian problem. So if we need another reason why to put an end to the conflict with the Palestinians, here is a new but very, very good reason to do it. I'm asked if I have proof that Iran supplies weapons to Gaza. Of course, we had the Korean aid, it's the ship which Arafat goes directly from Tehran. But let's speak about the current reality. The arms come from Sinai. To Sinai they come from Sudan. Who is the pusher? I don't think there is a question. Let's ask who pushed the money? Iran. That we know for sure. But the source of the weapons, as far as we know, is mainly Iran. They promised to the Hamas now $250 million. What for? Among other main issues is to buy arms and to pay to those who use it. About Eric's question about the fact they shared arms, I didn't notice that it make any difference. The common denominator of being Shiite and the ideology, this is the real common denominator, and it is beyond the question if it is Arabs or Farsis. It does make a substantial difference. What Ahmadinejad is doing in Latin America, he is looking for friends, for alliances, and he has one declared friend, which is Hugo Chavez, and he hopes to expand the relations, his relations in Latin America from Chavez to other leaders, and I hope he would fail. I hope that other leaders in Latin America would understand who is he. And I hope that they would not go as far as Hugo Chavez dared to do. Before I address the question of the Hungarian ambassador to Palestine, I have two Palestinian questions. One is about the Barghouti, and another one is about the Hebron. My recent visit, I'm coming from Hebron. I came just now from Hebron. We know the reality there is very complex. There are like 500 settlers that the IDF is obliged to defend, but there are, in this same area, 35,000 Palestinians. Whose lives are quite difficult because of that. And I believe that coexistence was possible. I believe that coexistence was possible if some of these 500 behaved in a different way. And unfortunately they don't. They are a source of provocations, and it's the duty of our police and our judiciary system to take the proper actions against these provocateurs. The Israeli cabinet yesterday appointed a commission of ministers chaired by Amir Peretz, Minister of Defense, with Minister of Justice and Foreign Affairs Tzipi Livni, and Minister of Homeland Security Avi Dichter. And this committee of three has to find out the way to secure that the law is enforced in Hebron. And actually today, this morning, I made a facts-finding tour there, though I am familiar with Hebron for almost 23 years. I was once the governor of the West Bank, the head of the civil administration, and I have some recommendations which I will very shortly deliver to the minister. Barghouti. Two facts. One, Barghouti is convicted for 5 life imprisonment for his involvement in terrorist attacks, which took the lives of several Israelis. This is one fact. Second fact, Marwan Barghouti is the most popular secular Palestinian leader. And what I said yesterday is that one day Israel will have to consider how long will he serve in our jail. That's exactly what I said, and that's exactly what I believe. Now I'm coming back to Iran, to your question. There is an Iranian opposition, inside as well as abroad. אפשר לחבות את זה באיזושהי צורה,
לכבות את המערכת הקלוט.
שמעון, הוא מכבד את המערכת. לא יהיה אין מה לעשות, מכבד. אי אפשר.
This was a shock to
There are no records, so you can talk free.
say stupid things.
Not stupid, the truth.
So there is an Iranian opposition inside as well as outside Iran. The Iranian people is not satisfied with this regime for many reasons. I mentioned the human rights. The entire domestic policy is very repressive. coming from most obscurant way of thinking. Most, I would say, medieval values. Even worse than that. And the people don't like it. 70% of the Iranians are youngsters, and they want to imitate the life of young men and women in Europe, in America. They don't like what they are obliged to do. 50% are women, and they are, by law, terribly underprivileged. There are minorities in Iran, and they are again underprivileged. The Kurds, the Azeris, the Baluchis. So the Iranian people is not satisfied, and they prefer to have a different regime. But they don't see any glimmer of support from outside. In July '99, the students' demonstrations were brutally suppressed. It was a painful lesson for them. There was no... There was no... There was no any sign of sympathy from outside. More than that, I told you in an answer to our colleague from okay. When I replied to our colleague from Reuters, I said it took such long time that the international community reacted. The international community is so evasive and aversive of confrontation with the regime. So what is the message for the Iranian people? They see that the Western democracies prefer to court the regime rather than confront it. So this is a discouragement. If you're asking about the position comes from the people. And the Iranian people is not seriously encouraged to take their own fate in their own hands. I will give you an example. The previous ruler of Ukraine, he was far, far less dangerous to the world than Ahmadinejad. He didn't produce nuclear weapons. He didn't send terrorists to other countries. But there was a very clear message from the Western democracies to the Ukrainian people that if they remove or unseat that president, they will have the backing. Does the Iranian people hear such a message? I'm afraid it's not. So that's my answer to your question. I believe that the Iranian people deserve a good government. I believe that the Iranian people should not suffer from such despotic, obscurant regime. But it's their duty to decide when and how to change it. It cannot be imposed from outside.
another round of questions. And please, if you can focus the questions regarding the Iranian nuclear capability, not to spread the question to other areas. It will be more helpful. Yes, please, Mr. Day.
There are no mics. Oh, there isn't. It doesn't matter. Mr. Deputy Minister. Oh, they must. Mr. Deputy Minister, thank you for your presentation. How do we reconcile a certain dissonance from your words? You opened up by saying that Iran is the major spoiler of a reconciliation between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Iran being the major external source in Lebanon of instability, as well as in Gaza. If that's true, how is Israel to go about creating this reconciliation that you talked about later in your talk, in view of the fact that a number of our neighbors may be interested in perhaps cooperating in some security alliances or discussions on some level if we were to solve this problem? It just seems to me that there's a built-in problem because of Iran's position that until that problem is taken care of, very little progress can be made on the Palestinian-Israeli track.
The only way to cope with the problem that you mentioned is to be very persistent, very decisive, very diligent in our efforts to settle the conflict with the Palestinians. We have to, if we are waiting for blessing from Ahmadinejad, we can wait forever. We have to do it in spite of all their obstructive action. That's the only answer that I can give you, and I very strongly believe in it.
Mr. Minister, look, on one side you look very optimistic, and on the other side extremely pessimistic, so it's very hard to put the two things together.
So you to shrink?
The situation is not his personality.
Let me explain what do I mean. I mean, you don't believe that Europe or any other country will play a positive role. For what you say, it's quite clear. You don't believe that anybody will put some deterrence in front of Iran because this is something that actually nobody's doing. So why don't you do something like that? I mean, at least some deterrence. We don't hear about it anyhow. I understand that you cannot ask the Iranian people to make a revolution because they won't follow Israel, right? But deterrence is something that you can use. So why don't you do that?
First, since I'm now in the psychoanalytic phase, I will explain.
We are all in the second.
I will explain. This, in this country, you don't have the privilege to be pessimistic. You should be optimistic. And optimism derives from the fact that even in very, very gloomy and dangerous and complicated circumstances, you know what to do. As long as I know exactly what to do, I'm optimist. Because I believe that my action will bear fruit. That's all. So now you have the psychological analysis or the answer to your projection. Am I pessimistic or optimistic? I am optimistic in a very discouraging circumstance. Now, why? And here you mentioned the terror. I'm afraid that some people misinterpreted some of the implications of the war in Lebanon. I don't say it was a smashing victory for the idea, but we succeeded to change the reality in South Lebanon. In the first time, the Lebanese army, after 30 years, is there till the last inch of the Lebanese territory, secure its sovereignty, not Hizbullah, not foreign militia, but the legal, legitimate Lebanese army. They are enforced by an effective international force, which is the UNIFIL, the new UNIFIL, which is different than the old UNIFIL, fortunately. The Lebanese people understand now very well what are the results that other countries turns its territory to a springboard against Israel. And if you speak about deterrence, there is no single Arab leader who dreams that his capital will look like South Beirut after the treatment of Israeli airforce. So I think that our deterrence exists. There were flaws in our military performance. I do not deny. More than that, we just now finished a long process of very detailed in-house investigation and debriefing about all the flaws in our performance. And we shall correct them. Most of it comes because of budgetary restraint. This army did not train, and some equipment was lacking. There was a lack of equipment and lack of training, and in this year, in 07, we are going to rectify it and to restore our strength to the level which is before 2000. We have excellent commanders, excellent soldiers, and now they will be trained again with the best equipment which money can buy, and the best equipment which our scientists and engineers can produce, and we are number one. So if someone has a doubt that Israel is the strongest military force between Baku and Casablanca, we are.
One more question.
Okay. Chris Mitchell, CNN News. Can you comment on what effect a military strike might have on the Iranian people? Would it rally the people around the regime, or might it undermine the regime?
I'm terribly reluctant to discuss this also.
Okay. And one final question. What do you comment? Can you comment on the role of Russia in Iranian affairs, and particularly its nuclear program?
Unfortunately, I believe against its own interest, Russia helps the Iranians with nuclear know-how, and unfortunately they provide too sophisticated arms to the Iranians. Russia is our friend. Russia is a member of the family of the enlightened nations. But unfortunately here, I'm sorry to say, that they supply good weapons to bad guys.
There were other two in this wing who are the two last questions. Yes, please.
Do I need to speak to the mic? Jatinder Sidhu from BBC Radio News. I'd like to ask you, you've painted a picture of Iran as the major strategic threat for the region, and one that, in comments attributed to you at the weekend, which you described as moderate or normal Arab nations.
Say normal, say moderate and or reasonable.
Okay, reasonable Arab nations should align themselves against. But in order to get those so-called normal states on board, you would need to renew efforts to resolve the Palestinian issue. I mean, what prospects can you see for that renewal of efforts in the shorter term to achieve the broader strategic aim of bringing security to the region?
Given my notorious optimism, I think it's feasible. I think we can embark on a new effort of negotiations with the Palestinian president, with the only one who is authorized, as far as their constitution is concerned, to negotiate with Israel permanent status. I believe it is a very important starting point. Before that, we have to take some measures here, inside the territory, in order to reduce the despair, the poverty, the suffering, which is a fertile ground for terrorism. But if what I described is feasible, yes, I strongly believe it is. Not with the Hamas, no way. But with the president, no doubt we can do it.
And with people like Marwan Barghouti?
It was already mentioned here. Yes.
And the last question, please.
I'm from the Russian embassy. My question is very short.
Now you are getting up.
Yeah. How could you comment on Sunday Times publication? And you know what I'm talking about.
Baseless. Baseless. Really. But, you know, Sunday Times has to sell a newspaper. But the story about
Yes, this military aspect.
Nice pictures of F-15s, F-16s, but it's baseless.
Thank you very much, all of you. It was, I think, all of us learned a lot, but at the end we know that it is only the beginning of a long way dealing with the Iranian threat, and I hope that we will do it in a better understanding in the future than in the past. Thank you very much.